Welcome to the Massage Therapy Podcast. I'm Heather Rivers, registered massage therapist.
And I'm Nicole Andrews, registered massage therapist and contemporary medical acupuncturist.
We're colleagues with almost 13 years of combined experience and small business owners who have a passion for health and wellness. So grab your cup of tea, kick up your feet, and enjoy today's episode.
Okay, we have a first-time guest on the podcast today. We're very, very excited.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so her name is Cathy. She's been an RMT for how many years now, Cathy?
16.
Wow. That's amazing.
Awesome.
Can you give us a little bit of a background of your life as an RMT?
Sure. I graduated Sutherland Chan 2004, started working 2004 and worked multidisciplinary, worked in a gym facility, worked in a spa, like hair salon spa.
Oh, wow.
Type of environment. Had 3 jobs at once, like the usual.
Yep.
Into all
The
those
hustle.
places. Thought I found my forever home when we moved to Brooklyn. And so I was between a spot in town there and a spot in Stouffville, and then ended up in a kind of a semi-multidisciplinary. It was with a chiropodist and another massage therapist in Oshawa. And then that's where I started my business relationship with a chiropodist, and her and I moved into the clinic space that I house now by myself with 3 other massage therapists, where we're strictly massage therapy now, which is great. I love it.
That's
awesome. Quiet, the traffic. I mean, we make our own noise, but it's not busy traffic from a different type of practitioner coming and going often.
Mm-hmm. Having a lot of turnover through the day.
Yeah.
I can attest to Cathy's clinic space. A little tidbit. She is her clinic is around the corner from my home, and I do go over there and use my benefits with them. And
Awesome.
honestly, it's a beautiful space. I really like the setup and how each treatment room is, and just the aesthetic is just really nice. So, and the fact that I believe you have laundry on site, so I'm sure,
do.
You and your girls love that.
That was a big requirement when Anita and I first created that space. We actually used to go through a laundry service when we were at the old clinic, and my machines were paid for probably within 2.5 months.
Wow.
Of what the bill
Nice.
cost me for renting the linens, having them picked up, having them dropped off. It was only a matter of months, and we were already saving money. It was amazing.
It's amazing.
That's
awesome. An RMT is involved in the first phases of a building, going into a rental space or building when there's laundry on site.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And as my girls kind of just come to start working with me, it's like, oh, you mean we have to drag our laundry all the way home? I don't have to have my husband or my partner complaining about the water bill because I'm constantly.
Yeah. So true.
That is massage therapy life, right?
Well, wonderful. So what we wanted to kick off this podcast today, we didn't really introduce that. We just really wanted to get in and really get to know Cathy, is we are all a part of a CBN community-based network in our area. And we had a little chat a couple weeks ago, or last week, I think it was, talking about everything going on right now with COVID and the state of where our RMTs right now. We're all mandated to not be working. And so what support is out there? As again, last week or our last episode, we were talking about all the different ways that massage therapists can fit in this world, and what different kind of pay structures and job scenarios that they can be found in. So it can be kind of a tricky landscape navigating between being maybe an actual employee. Like we said, we know some that are employees at the spas or things like that. Even in multidisciplinary clinics, you can be seen as an employee or paid in as employees, or you're working as a subcontractor on those splits, and or rents. And then at the same time, you can still be a practitioner, but also be owning a clinic like Cathy here. And so that some supports you might need in different ways. So Cathy had some really good insight in that meeting, so we quickly wanted to scoop her up and get her on the podcast, and hopefully we can answer some questions out there for anybody who is an RMT or is not an RMT but may find themselves in these scenarios. So do you want to talk a bit, Cathy, about how you kind of came across this knowledge, being a part of that committee, I believe it is you're on?
There's one, it's, desperation to try to get my own funds together to pay my rent and bills like that. So it's, I think a lot of us are keenly interested in the information the government's pushing out a lot. But I belong to an association that's CFIB, which is Canadian Federation for Independent Businesses, and it's national, and they have over 100,000 members of different businesses from small to medium size. They're nonprofit. They are basically advocates for businesses, any type of business. And so they have been holding weekly podcasts or webinars rather to go over anything that's kind of come through the government within the last week. And everything changes constantly. So I listen to that every week. It's an hour, and it just kind of highlights everything that they're doing. They're a really good association to belong to because they help you with everything. They're helping tremendously with this. They have so much information on their website about anything, any programs the government's putting out. But they are also there to help with any bylaws that the average person wouldn't recognize is out there without having combing through the CRA website all the time. So I get people that swing by, for example, when the no smoking, no vaping signage was coming out. So the government can actually go past your space, and if you don't have one of those signs, you could be fined.
Oh, interesting.
And the average person doesn't know that or realize that, and it's a bylaw that you have to have that posted. But being part of that membership, they just show up and say, here you go, here's your sticker, stick it on your window.
Oh, cool.
So they help with a lot of bylaw stuff like that. They do a lot of different things. And so one of the things is this webinar that I've been paying attention to every week and learning a lot of things about kind of what different programs are out there.
So this being an association, then I assume you pay a membership to it, and anybody can pay a membership
can join.
Okay.
And it is a membership fee, and it's based on, I think it's $30 a month. And then there's a little bit of tack on for however many employees you may have or people within your space. So it ends up being a couple $100 a year, but I've personally found it beneficial.
Yeah, I just brought up here just when you were saying that it's only $30 a month plus $3 per person, including owners. That's really not. So $33 if it's just you and yourself a month. That's really not that much. So yeah,
extremely valuable.
And they're really good. So for example, I bank with Scotiabank. They're partnered with Scotiabank, and Scotiabank, they're also partnered with Chase. So for me, having my Chase POS machine, I don't pay fees for deposits into my account. So they have those different little perks and benefits too. You can get it with insurance companies. You can get it with credit cards. TELUS, I think they have a deal with auto insurance, just different things they have because they're so big. They can get more benefits from different providers.
Right. Just kind of as this RMTAO sort of offers those with sort of things with their benefits. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Something I had never even heard of it. I think when you gave me the acronym when we were first starting to talk, and I quickly had to Google that as what is this? So that's really interesting.
The RMTAO is which I feel is absolutely beneficial. I've been a part of them since I was in school. So it's been 16 years for me with them too. And I would never be without them, where they're focused mostly on us and on RMTs. The CFIB is on business. It's just business in general, which is good if you have your own space and your own business going, so that they do help out with those things that you may not think of. Or there's counseling too. Like if I have a problem, questions with payroll or anything, I can phone them and say, this was, can you help me? And they'll help with anything.
That's
anything
amazing.
Business-wise, which is great.
That is amazing. And is there any way to kind of connect with other members and it could be somebody that's not even into healthcare, let's say as a small business, and you're able to kind of maybe connect with others in the group?
They do have different meetings and different things that can go on so that you can go locally within your area to meet with people in different businesses.
Okay.
I did way back when, I think when we first started, they had it was actually a women in business event. And so a lot of
cool.
different women that were involved were there and had guest speakers and stuff like that. Similar
Which there
story.
are, yeah, that's amazing. Which there are, I find out our way, Oshawa and even east of us into Newcastle, so many female business owners that I don't think the general public really realizes how many of us there are out there, which is just fantastic. It should be the norm. So maybe that's it. We all find that it's the norm. So we don't really notice it as much because we're like, yeah, of course. So that's amazing. Amazing. So let's kind of get into the kind of meat of what we were, the idea of this podcast was. And we wanted to kind of go through each, maybe not very specific scenario, but maybe each kind of scenario that an RMT can be fallen as employee, subcontractor, independent contractor within a clinic on their own. And then looking at someone, like we said, like yourself, Cathy, who is a clinic owner as well as a practitioner, and what what's out there in the way of support during this time with COVID. And I'm sure at each different scenario, there are different barriers and hurdles and obstacles in each different ways that, when we talked before, I never thought of it from the way of having other people in your space, because it's just Nicole and I, we kind of split the rent between us, never really thought of it in that way. So I think it just like a light bulb went off. Maybe we can start at the employed level. And I think there might be some bleed over into the subcontractor, independent person with what support have you learned that we have through the CFIB? I know there's kind of the EI and the CERB. So I don't know if you can talk to the difference in how those are working right now a little.
Well, they've actually blended the programs to be one program, so everybody gets the same benefit payout. Right. If you're an employee, you have to apply through EI, and if you're not an employee, then you apply through CERB directly. But the EI people do get funneled through, and they get a CERB payout, so everybody gets paid out the same. It's just a question of how you process that payment, that application, really. So it's same with EI. You have to report every couple of weeks, say, no, I'm not working, and do that reporting. And then with CERB, you do it once a month. So that's the only difference there. And then everybody gets the same.
I don't know if this scenario might apply, but if you were the employee and you're going through the EI, but let's say you're also providing some virtual support to your existing clientele and receiving payment for that, you would then have to be reporting that.
You do have to report that income, but that's something that came out in the last week or so, is that you're allowed to have up to $1,000 additional income brought in. Before, when CERB first started, it was zero income. That was the only way that you could get it, but they've changed it so that you could get up to $1,000 a month or within the pay period. And that is gross.
Okay.
It is pre-taxes, which most of us are just gross anyway.
Yeah.
But now you can get that $1,000. So there was a question for physiotherapists, for example, who were doing some virtual or emergency appointments. Some chiropractors are doing some emergency appointments, and so they've maybe collected $300 or $400 or maybe a little more, and they were concerned that they weren't going to get any payout. But now they can still be eligible for CERB because as long as it's under $1,000.
Right. And I don't know if you can talk to this, but if that $300, let's say that physio, chiro, or massage therapist brought in, they report that, do they still get the full $2,000 for that month, or would it be the $2,000 less the gross that they brought in?
I think it's still the full $2,000. I just don't know. The only thing is that since the announcement has been made, the application for the next month isn't open. So if it is the same general questions, I think then you still get the full benefit. I think what the government's trying to do, quite honestly, is that Trudeau actually answered questions to this today in his talk, where somebody had said to him, what if people are double dipping? What if they're in one program and they're not, and they're in another where they're only supposed to be this one or that one? And he said, right now, the important thing is getting money out the door. So they've made it very simplified in terms of applying, but they will be found out in the end because they know who they're giving money to. So if that happens, and if there's a crossover, come tax season, they'll know.
Yeah, I think that is one of the questions that we all have to check off with the CRB is like here, here's the criteria, and you're basically like, I'm checking off that I fall in this criteria and fall under it. And it does say, I think the last one, that if you are found later to not have fallen under this criteria, that you will be required to pay this money back, right? So that's something that's super important, and something to note that getting this income, if it's the 2,000 plus you're bringing in your gross income, I think we're all pretty used to it as practitioners, that you got to put aside that percentage that's going to be taxed, because it's coming to you without any income tax taken off right now.
That's right. And it is taxable.
So then let's take it to the next step. I think we'll be chatting a little bit more in this, where, you are a practitioner, but you're also a clinic owner. You may or may not have payroll. And if you do have payroll, it might be small. Do you still qualify for CERB then?
You still qualify for CERB because you qualify for CERB as the individual. What is out there as a business owner is, if you have payroll, then there is the loan that they have out, the small business loan. So the small business loan, you have to have had a minimum of $10,000 payroll, and or the max is $1.5 million for the payroll run. So one of the things that CFIB is doing is they're lobbying the government. This is one of the things they do, and because they have the membership numbers behind them, carries a little bit of weight, and they're able to get enough voices out there to say this is not adequate enough, but they're trying to get the bottom taken out of that so that you don't have to have a payroll run,
right,
in order to be eligible. So for me, for example, my girls are on splits and I don't do a T4 run, so I'm not eligible for a loan. So I get the CERB payment like everybody else, which is great for me personally, and helps me be, a member of my household and pay my phone bill and my insurance and all those fun things, but it doesn't cover clinic rent, and it doesn't cover clinic bills. So all of those bills are still happening for me, but I personally have no support otherwise.
So what is it looking like? They just started this lobby for the government?
They've been doing the lobby ever since he first announced it. So when it was first announced, the program was for 20,000 minimum to 1.2 maximum. And so the first change that they made is they took it down to 10,000 and up to 1.5. So they're still going back to them saying, please take the bottom out, so that it would open it up, like it would open up for you guys owning your clinic space, then you would be eligible for it.
Didn't even think of it. So I mean, it's wrapping your brain around it.
If you have to have a business account with the bank.
Yes.
Okay.
So in order to have your own POS machine, you have to have a business account. So if you have a business account with the bank, then you would be eligible. If you fit into the criteria, you would be eligible to apply for that loan, which and that loan's it's a good deal.
Okay. Yeah, I did look into it because I was wondering, just because I do have the rental space and all of the internet and all of the other things that come with it. And I don't have any employees. I do a straight rent with her. And I was like, I don't qualify for any of this. So I guess, so I was using the CERB. So I'm lucky enough to have a partner who makes enough money to cover like our house bills. So CERB covers clinic bills and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people who don't have that. Like they are the sole provider in their family. So that's good to know. I'm liking this CFIB. I've been looking it up as we've been talking, actually. So I'm liking it. So
I think it's fantastic. Some years I'm like, oh, $200 again. But but honestly, I feel it is a worthwhile company to invest your money in, because they are really there to help you.
That's amazing. Just for anybody out there who doesn't know, and I'll fully admit I've been kind of living under a rock, what is the small business loan offering?
So everybody gets the same. It's a $40,000 loan. That is interest free for 2 years. So you have until December 31st, 2022 to pay it back. And if it's paid back in full by December 31st, you keep 10 grand. You only have to pay back 30.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal. So after December 31st, if it's not paid back up to $30,000, then they'll start charging interest and you have to pay the whole thing back. It's of the interest if you say you only need $5,000 to get you through. Take the whole 40, put 30 of it in a high interest savings account, tuck it away. Right? December 31st comes, give the 30 grand back, you've gotten a free 10.
And you've covered your bases in case this goes on for what feels like going to be forever. Right? So you have that safety net just in case, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true. Especially when, they have put out a framework or a roadmap, if you will, of going back to work in the province of Ontario. But I have been kind of doing a little bit of research of, what has happened in the past with certain viruses and things. And if we do make that quick jump back, there is a chance that, we might have to kind of reel back in if we go too far too quickly. So yeah, it would support in case that happened, that we might get back to work, but doesn't mean that we'll be staying there if people aren't following the guidelines, right?
That's right.
So it's very important that we do all stay home if you can, and just going out for essential services. So the rent relief that was announced as well, is that within the small business loan? Is that kind of separate?
So that is separate, and it is actually for the mortgage holders. It is for the landlords, and it's for the landlords. They can get, and it's not mandatory. It's optional for them to apply for it. So there's no guarantee that every landlord will. So what they do is they apply, they can apply for it. They will be given 50% in a loan, which is, I think, a forgivable loan. Again, and they're required to, if they do that, then they're expected to give an extra 25% to the renter, and so that way the renter will only have to pay 25% of the rent, and that's for April, May, and June.
Yeah, because I think I had talked with a few people, and I said, the rent relief, it is there for the building owners and the landlords, but it was like, well, are they really going to pass it down to their tenants though, right?
And that's the incentive. The incentive for them to get it is to pass that on to the tenant. And so they can say, well, I'm going to take it and I'm going to give the tenant 50% off, but I can't afford to do the extra 25 for them. So the way I look at it is 50% of my rent would still be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes sense. And I think it would be beneficial, obviously, for building owners to do it, not only in the sense of helping their clients now or their tenants now, but if they didn't help their tenants, or if they didn't give them the 25%, they might start losing those tenants, right, for when we get back. So it's really important. So that can fall under what we kind of talked about too, is we do know somebody local who is an RMT and incorporated business, and so that's something that maybe they can tap into from that.
That's right. Yeah,
that side.
I actually had just some more questions about CFIB, because I'm really interested in this. Solely because when I worked at a clinic, they did a local sort of business meeting get together. It wasn't CFIB, it was something else. But their businesses would get together. I think it was every Wednesday at 6 a.m. or something.
Like a crazy networking.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So if you know what that is, do you the difference between the two of them? Just because I'd gone to a bunch of those meetings, that seemed more like a networking thing. It seemed very different from this.
That other is definitely a networking thing, and it is where you go every week and you sit and you have breakfast or tea or whatever, and you're expected to give referrals and take referrals and back and forth, and you're supposed to do that every week with new ones.
Yes.
And it is to promote your own business and get your own business out there and other people's business out and across and all that kind of thing. This is not like that. You can be part of this program. You get your mandates emailed to you. They give you surveys. They come around and see you. They bring you paperwork for anything that's done. It is completely different. This is it's for your business. It's not for you to promote anybody else's. It's not for you to feel like you have to sell yourself to them. This is strictly to help businesses run within the bylaws of municipal, federal, provincial government, all three levels. They help with all of that red tape for anything. They advocate for the business owner for Visa, because Visa charges so many different fees, and MasterCard, and they're trying to get those streamlined and trying to get those cut down so they're not as expensive in terms of their percentages that they take. So they take on all those different things for business owners. That's what they're there for. It is a totally different ballgame.
It seems more of like a advocacy group,
Yes.
As opposed to networking, which is really awesome. So you had mentioned that you had some webinars. Is that something that CFIB puts on like a regular basis?
They have education, like different seminars, classes, tools you can take it, and they do have them through the program, through their portal, that you can go and sign up and learn about sanitation or keeping everything clean, or doing this bylaw, this, or doing an accounting, or doing payroll, or learning like any different type of course that you could kind of take about business. Okay. They do offer those. Right now, I think it's just so focused
on COVID.
That this is really, they're throwing these out every single week, and they throw out an email to their group, to the whole membership, and say, the webinar is coming on. We've got 2 on Thursday and 1 on Friday. And you can pick whichever one you want. You sign up for free, and then you sit and you listen to it for an hour, and then they'll give you a survey afterwards. And then surveys will go out right before, just to kind of find out where everybody is. So one of the questions is about the loan. Do you qualify? Are you eligible? Why aren't you eligible? Or if you weren't eligible last time, are you eligible now? Because the rules have changed. So it just kind of gives them numbers that they can take and say, we have 40,000 people that want to take your loan, but it's not accessible to them because you've got a basement and you need to remove it. So that makes the government say, wow, we have 40,000 small businesses that we need to help. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's get rid of that number, so that's the kind of thing that they're doing. And that's really what they're focusing on right now. I mean, I'm sure if I went and looked, there are probably other things sitting there, but I think the bulk of the resources are focused on this right now to keep small businesses going and prevent them from closing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's really good in knowing that they have more of those, like, kind of, I'm assuming, like you said, they're online courses, the ones that you're taking, like little webinars of, proper sanitation or accounting or payroll and everything. I was reading in one of the Facebook RMT groups, there was a long thread about Lysol wipes or something, using them on your table. And it was an argument back and forth about using Lysol wipes versus using spray versus using Cavicide. And so if people had the opportunity with this program, the CFIB, and it's so valuable in any other things, and then they can also do this, which is very important for this period of time. I think that's really cool, because I don't know if everybody is fully aware of things like when you spray down something or wipe it with a disinfecting wipe, that like you can't just dry it. You have to let it air dry. And that's when it becomes sanitized, right? And so I don't think a lot of people, I'm just speculating, know that. I'm not just saying RMTs, but everybody in general too, other businesses as well. Seems like a very valuable membership to have.
It does. It does. I'm going to look more into that. I was actually wondering if, I know we asked you a lot of questions, Cathy, if there's anything within the last few weeks of listening to those webinars that you've learned that maybe hasn't been touched on, sort of like looking through the more massage therapy sort of feeds that you found valuable, like you didn't know, and you're like, oh, no one's talked about this, or oh, people are talking about this and that is not the right information, because you have like a more reliable source. Is there anything that you kind of wish people had like a clear idea on out there? Or?
There are two things. One, and I know it's out there and the information's there, but a lot of people that I've talked to hadn't really realized, but our CERB benefits are only available for 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
After 16 weeks, it's either we're done or they're going to extend it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would like to think if everything's shut down long enough, they will extend it, but that's my wish.
There is only so much money that the government has too, right?
Yeah. So there is that. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, just like a lot of people didn't realize they had to apply every month.
Yes.
They thought it was automatic. Heather had brought this up in a scenario of an employee who is going on mat leave. And while this does not apply to me, I found it interesting, and it came through in one of the CFIB webinars, was one of the questions was one of the employees was pregnant and she was due for mat leave. And her concern was, what do I do? How do I apply? What do I get? And maternity leave is its own entity. It is separate. It is not going to be funneled into the CERB. It's not stuck for the 16 weeks. They will still have their own process like they always have. And I think that's important to know for people. Because outside of that question coming up and the one counselor on the end answering that question, I have not heard anything about that anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either. And I'm sure there are a lot of women right now that are wondering that question, like, what's going to happen? Because I was working and now I'm off and I'm supposed to be taking. Do you know how that affects anyone with parental leave as opposed to mat leave? Because there's that difference between like the mat leave for the female and then like a husband going off. Do you know if there's any difference?
I think the parental leave is still, I don't know 100%, but it is, I think, probably part of the same package because it is something that is not the usual EI.
Yeah.
But I don't have that answer for sure.
I just thought I'd ask. You never know. Maybe someone listening has that answer and they can let us know.
Yeah, they may very well.
Yeah, I think it's super important, especially as we mentioned before, it's such a female dominated industry that we're in. And so many RMTs, do have to take mat leave here and there. Some, I'm not really sure. I'm not in that sub pool of our industry. They usually don't take off unless they were an employee, like full 12 months of mat leave. Usually it's a shortened mat leave. So that's something really important to know.
Because a lot of the fathers end up taking the paternal to top up the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of female RMTs, unless you pay into EI because you're already like an IC, a lot just save up to take time off. And then I know that was my husband and I, that's what we did. I just saved up to take enough time off, and then he qualified to take pat leave and he took a bunch. He took more pat leave than I took of a mat leave. So wasn't that a great perk for him? He got like 8 months off or something, and I took 2.5. So I could have taken more, but we bought a house. So that's good to know for a lot of people, because I think maybe this is true out there. The government kind of threw this out there, gave it guidelines, and then I think decided that, all right, as problems come up, we'll deal with the holes and the cracks and the people who fall through them. So I think that's something that we should notice, that a lot of people aren't sure if they qualify or they don't now. And you had mentioned this, like they might later, and then they can get retroactively paid money and stuff like that. So every day there's like new info coming out, and every minute somebody else is saying, hey, I have this scenario that doesn't fall into any of these categories. What do I do? So do you have, Cathy, any info on like best person or best place to go to get info or contact, like what people should do? Like,
so CRA website is got a lot of information on it, and that's really the best place to go because it is all of their programs. I happen to have family, very lucky that do work for CRA, and I know for even them as employees on the phones, on the front lines, they aren't getting the information fast enough because it's changing so quickly. So sometimes it gets put out and they're working and they're in the moment and they don't have time to watch the news conference, and all of a sudden all this stuff has been released and they're trying to play catch up even on the phones because it's happening so fast. So I think the CRA website is probably the best place. Google certainly is not.
No. Facebook is not.
Definitely not there.
But going to the CRA website is probably the fastest, easiest place to get a lot of information. And next to that, I think we're all sitting at home anyway. It's nice. Justin walks out every day and sits down and has a little talk with us, right? So I get a lot of it there too. And then short of that, for me, because I'm a member of CFIB, I'm lucky I have some pretty quick response times. If I have any questions, I can call in and get them, or I can write them and they're back. They respond really quickly. And actually one thing about them that was really kind of top notch for me was one of the seminars. I put my headset on and I had a few things to do, but I had it all set up and I joined the meeting early while I was catching a few things. And they were actually live about 10 minutes before the meeting doing their pre-brief for the meeting with all the staff. And
cool.
so finally somebody said, I just sent you a message. I just sent you a message. And then someone went, oop, we're live already, people. So and they didn't realize that they were live. So I actually heard 10 minutes of their conversations before they actually opened up the webinar. And just the way that they were so concerned that they answered every question that came through, and that they helped all the members, and they were able to ease everybody's worry and just help them. It was amazing to me that they were working so hard, even when they didn't think anybody was listening.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's very cool.
That's really cool. That's really
cool.
Do you know if this RMTAO has any contact or need for contact with the CFIB? I feel like that might be a place where if those kind of two entities had a little crossover or interaction, might be beneficial as us as RMTs.
I think it totally would be beneficial. I have no idea if they do. I'm going to assume they don't, given our last meeting.
A question for Mr. Michael.
That's right. And I think, I mean, his experience otherwise, because he has quite an extensive experience, he may know of them or has come across them before, but it depends on how big corporate he was with what his role was before. It may be that they were in a category kind of below the level he was at, and they just weren't on his radar. I think it would be good because, as he said, they're 450 some odd members strong for Ontario, which is great. And those are great numbers for Ontario to go to the province with for anything. But when you add that to the 110,000 nationwide members, it helps with those numbers.
Yeah, it would help us. Like,
I say 4,500 members.
And in times like this, like, we might never have thought, oh yeah, they should talk the RMTAO and the CFIB. Yeah, you know, there's maybe not, but at a time like this, when we all need support, and here's two RMTs here with Nicole and I that had no idea about them until we spoke with you, Cathy. And so I could bet that there's a lot more RMTs that don't know that there's that help there. You know, there's the RMTAO to help us with the health kind of care side of it, and working with the CMTO and that kind of thing, and advocating on the healthcare side. But then
our profession solely,
right?
That's all we're solely focused on.
And then, but there's so much business support that I don't think RMTs know that's out there for them, because our focus in school was mostly on more of the profession and the business being the secondary. It is what it is. It's such an intense course to go through, and so much we have to learn to be effective and safe practitioner. I feel like it would be a whole other year of school tacked on if we added in this business aspect. So,
well, so I've been practicing for 16 years, and it wasn't until we were moving into the new clinic space that my business partner asked to switch gears and change banks. And so I was with another bank, and that's where we had our clinic banking. And she was with Scotiabank and asked if we could switch to go to Scotia. So I said, sure. And it was my business advisor at Scotiabank that was the one that brought in the representative from CFIB.
Oh, wow.
And that's how we found out about them. Oh. Otherwise, we would have never known.
That's
so
amazing.
I mean, I practiced for I've been where I am now since 2011. So, you know, I went for 7 years or so without even knowing that they were out there. So I'm not surprised that people don't know about it. And the RMTAO is a business. They are a business. So for them, I think it would be beneficial, because there'd be a lot of information that they could get themselves just about the different government programs, and not having to wait to find.
Yeah, I think that's something that RMTA would definitely benefit from, because if they could get the first-hand information and then pass along to their members directly, right? Because they could filter through the information from the CFIB and then be like, this definitely applies to like our members, right? I think that would be good. Maybe we should figure out how to make that connection happen.
Well, I can always send an email to Michael. Michael's, for anybody that doesn't know, Michael Faraday is the CEO of the RMTAO, which is the Registered Massage Therapy Association of Ontario. That is not a required association to be a part of as an RMT in Ontario. It's an elective. So the CMTO, the College of Massage Therapists of Ontario, they advocate for the public and protect the public from us and regulate our profession, where the RMTAO is there to support us through things. So there's many services that they offer, packages like similar to the CFIB when it comes to, you know, rebates and discounts with other vendors, as well as if ever there was an issue and maybe somebody had a complaint put towards them at the CMTO level, an RMT can go to the RMTAO with their membership and get legal advice and help from that regard. So I just kind of wanted to lay that out there for our non-RMT listeners. Michael Faraday is very accessible via email. Anybody can email him. He's really great for getting back to. So I can always plant the seed, and anybody else out there who feels strongly on this, please feel free to email the RMTAO. I believe it's info@rmtao.com. So they're always there and willing to get back to you. So I wanted to circle around, if Nicole doesn't have any other questions right now, back to the this return to work announcement, because that was just announced really the last 2 days. I just wanted to get your thoughts and feelings on it, Cathy, of where do you think the RMTs will fall into that?
I have a couple of minds and not, I honestly really don't know where we fall into which stage, because I believe there could be arguments made for every stage.
Yeah.
I believe there could be arguments made for stage 1, you know, where there's maybe some surgeries going on and some little bit more essential services put out. I saw today from there's the RMT Canada that I'm part of. Their magazine went out today and they were talking about BC opening up, and BC is massage therapists and chiropractors are on the list to go back into practice, I think, during their stage 1. So it's going to be interesting to see how they unfold, because they will be out before we will. And and so I guess it just depends on how successful they are. I know one thing they're talking about is to limit wait time in the waiting rooms, or numbers that are there, so people aren't sitting and hanging around, because there is still a concern there. We are also, you know, in very close contact with our clients, so perhaps we're not the first stage to be going back, and maybe it's more second stage, but then there's that same argument that could put us in the third stage. So I really don't know where we're going to end up.
Yeah. Like you said, I can see the arguments, because with the first stage, I believe it said something about access to be able to change quickly to health protocols that are going to be coming out. And I can see us falling into that, because we already have gloves, or should have gloves on hand, and masks on hand. I know that up until this, you know, if we ever went in and kind of woke up feeling that bit of a cough, but it didn't really come of anything, we all wore a mask and told our clients, like, this is, you know, I woke up with this, I'll wear a mask, but it's up to you if you want to stay for your treatment or not. So I can see us falling into that, but I agree that we'll have to take a lot of information and really see what BC does, for sure.
Yeah. And New Brunswick is opening up too. They're also regulated.
Yes. So
New Brunswick, I think, is starting to lift a few of their restrictions starting May 4th, I think it is, or 6th, somewhere around there. I haven't heard really more, like there's some public areas that are being opened up, like parks and beaches and things like that for them that are opening. I don't know what other services are opening, but it's going to be interesting to watch them as well, because they're also ahead of us, and they also have registered therapists in their province. They're one of the 5. So I think it's really kind of watch to see how they do. The CMTO has been pretty strong on the fact that we are not essential, and they've sent some pretty strongly worded emails, which makes me believe that they will hold us back. But again, that is, like Michael said, anything that you think or hear right now is not true.
It's all speculation. Yeah. And it's hard, because I know a lot of us, we do want to get back to work. We're itching to do that. But at the same time, I do care about public safety, my own health, and not perpetuating this more. So it's at the same time, if they don't feel that we can fall into that first category, part of me will be sad, but I think we all have to try to respect that as much as possible and understand the more global picture.
For sure.
Do you have any suggestions or any ideas of how whenever we do get back, how the landscape will look even for your clinic specifically, or the landscape as RMTs in general?
Well, for not really in general, but just different things that the girls and I at work, we're group chat. We chat quite frequently, and we have been talking. And one of the things is to talk about allowing more space between our treatments, so that way clients can come in, go into treatment room, come out, pay, leave, and there isn't somebody sitting waiting. So it's not as congested. I mean, our areas there are days when all four of us are in our 3 treatment room space. And the changing of the guard happens, and there's clients coming and going, and there's a wait, and maybe somebody's walked in, and while we do have a lovely space, it's not that big, and so it can get crowded. So we're talking a little bit today about, I think what we need to do is space out some treatments a little bit more when more of us are in the clinic, to make sure that there isn't so much congestion. And right before, when we were closing that last week, kind of coming up to it, we were going out, and we were, all the things, right? Making sure you're wiping down the POS machine, wiping down the door handles, wiping down clients coming and going inside and outside for them, and all the switches and the taps and everything. And so I think it's just, we need more time in between clients to properly clean and properly be prepared for the next ones coming in, to keep them safe. So
to go
really
that
kind
extra
of what we're talking about now.
I think Nicole and I had the exact same conversation today about increasing that 15 minutes to maybe a 30-minute, and it might reduce the number of clients you might see in a day by 1 or 2 roughly. But it might be just kind of for the greater good right now. And I'm sure in time it might take years, but we might be able to get back to that 15-minute window or whatever else it is. So,
well, what I can tell you about that time frame and what's really nice about it, so I spent years with the 15-minute turnaround. That's kind of how you go out of the gate when you first start working. But in 2006, when I first started working in Oshawa in that disciplinary with another massage therapist and the chiropodist, there was a receptionist, and the massage therapist took half-hour breaks in between every client. And I came in used to 15 minutes, but then the chiropodist saw somebody every half an hour on the half hour. So the receptionist was just like, can you just do 30 minutes for me? She said, I just need it to be the same. I don't want a third person to try to figure out what it is. And it was just a lot on her plate. She's, trying to keep us all organized and corralled, right? So I said, fine, I'll take the 30 minutes. No big deal. 30 minutes is great.
Yeah.
And I know you don't see as many clients. Absolutely, you don't. Your day is maybe extended by an hour if you want to see as many clients. But when you have a half an hour between clients, you're never behind on your filing. You're never behind on your charting. You have time to visit the ladies. You have time to have something to eat without scarfing it down and chewing it while you're walking back to go wash your hands. Make the phone calls. And your day is actually a little bit easier. And the other thing I find, I wasn't as physically tapped.
Yeah.
You had that little bit of extra space in between and time in between that you just didn't feel as fatigued, or you were a little bit more fresh for every single client. And since we moved back here, and I left that other RMT behind when we moved into our new space where we are now, I did a half an hour for a while until more massage therapists came in and online booking, and then you have to, put the breaks in and everything. And then it, became a challenge to do the treatment times the right way. And so I went back to the 15 minutes with everybody else, and it's a fast-paced day, and it's, so I don't think it would be bad for us to take that exhale in between clients, be a little bit more fresh for them, be a little bit more prepared for them when they come in, and we can, review their file a little bit better, make a little bit more of an effort in the notes and not so rushed, or not, I'll get that at the end of the day when, I've got 5 minutes to think about it. That kind of thing. I think it'll help a lot of us slow down a minute, even though we've been slowed down for 7 weeks.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better, because I kind of felt in my gut that I wanted to make it half hour, and that might be something that I carry on for the rest of my career, or at least for the foreseeable future. Because just all the things you pointed out, I was like, maybe that's a bit better, because what I was doing was 15 minutes, and I would maybe have 3 1 hours back to back, and then I'd have to give myself an hour and a half or more lunch break just to get caught up on those files, to eat something, use the restroom, really give the clinic a good wipe down, and just recharge my batteries before I saw another 2 or 3 clients. And then I would come home and my partner would have dinner on the table. I would eat it and immediately go to sleep. So you just made me feel a bit better about thinking that that's something I might want to do, because I was also kind of feeling guilty in the sense of, well, everybody else does 15 minutes and will I be a lazy quote unquote therapist if I extend to 30 minutes?
I think you would be a better therapist for sure. 100%. 100% you will. Well, better therapist, but better personally within yourself. Right. You will feel better yourself about your day and what you're doing, and have more energy for yourself, for your partner, for your clients. Right. Wouldn't it be nice to go home and actually have an evening and not just go home and crash? Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, if you guys are in your space, I'm sure you don't have a receptionist.
I was going to make that point. When you're doing all of it, 15 minutes is not a whole lot of time.
No, it's not a lot of time. And sometimes I have to get back to my clients 5 hours later and say, I'm so sorry, but it's been crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody emails you, hey, can you send me that receipt? I didn't get it. You know what I mean? Or my insurance company wants it. And I'm emailing them at 9:30 at night, because when I get home, I have a toddler and I'm like, sorry, it's 9:30 at night. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I know I was at work from 8:30 to 8:30, but I didn't have 5 minutes to get back to you. And when I was pregnant with my son, I started putting in longer breaks, just because physically being that pregnant and still going, I worked up until 37 weeks. And he was born at 37 and a half weeks. So being that pregnant, it was like physically impossible to do 15-minute breaks. I could barely walk from the table to the desk in 15 minutes. It felt like some days. So it definitely is good. I've kind of gone back to the 15-minute breaks, but I do definitely have days where if I have like 3 people in a row, you know what I mean? I take an extra 15-minute, just like not a part of a lunch break to do it. So maybe that's something like a silver lining that will come from all of this. Maybe we'll kind of be like, I think I've seen it out there. It's like, we want to go back to normal, but what about the normal wasn't working for us? Like, we now have this ability to kind of like change it, go back, look at like wasn't working for us, and kind of be like, I'm not going back to that. Like, we need to have this new practice in place that kind of works better for all of us. So
absolutely, you can rewrite the playbook. And the thing is that just imagine a December when you're more refreshed through your day.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
You have time afterwards, and you actually, Christmas shopping is a pleasure, and going to that festive meal or out for drinks or socializing with friends and family becomes something to look forward to, rather than, oh my God, I'm so tired. Don't even talk to me.
People socialize in December. That's like a thing. Like, I don't do that. I become like, don't talk to me. Like, I'll see you on the 24th, 25th, 26th. But other than that, like, I'm not a friend. I am not anybody. So yeah, that's good.
I worked from 2006 until December 2010 with half-hour breaks. September 2006 till December 2010 with half-hour breaks. And I have to tell you, it was great. Like, I never felt run down. Like, I mean, it's also 15 years later. I mean, that's going to happen too. But it is actually, I think it's a good thing. I think it can make for better interactions with clients and colleagues and family.
Yeah, so I guess to like relate that to back all of this with like CERB and everybody kind of wondering about going back, maybe massage therapists out there need to start thinking of this as not like a bad thing, right? I think everybody kind of wants to know what everyone else is doing, so we all sort of seem on the same page. But I think we all need to realize we're all in very different spots in terms of like where we work, how our clientele is set up. Like, not everyone offers like 30, 45, 60 minutes. Some places work in place where they only do 30-minute treatments or only 1 hour treatments, right? So I think that's a good point to be made, that we can change it. We're all, most of us are independent contractor, small business owners. We can make the rules, right?
Well said.
We can make the rules. Like, if you want to do like a 15-minute break here and then a 45-minute break there, like, nobody's looking at your appointment book. Like, clients don't know. Like, it's not up to them, right? It's up to us. So yeah, that's good.
really good point as to my reason why I came back to massage and jumped in the way I am running my own. Even though I feel like I'd fit in well with Cathy's clinic. I don't feel
Probably
like
do.
I come in there and I'm just one of the girls. But I just mean I feel like with you, if you had one of your girls that needed to make a change like that, they probably can just come to you and talk about it, and you'd be open to it versus, I know we talked about in our last podcast, feeling that like, even though you're not an employee, but like you're expected to do certain things and expected to show up at 9 a.m. Maybe you don't have a client until noon, this expectation that you need to sit there and wait, because what if somebody walks in, where that's really on each person, I feel.
Well, it is. And I mean, the way that I run the clinic where we are, there are 4 of us. Everybody's in charge of their own schedule and they do their own thing. And if they don't have clients and they don't want them, then I just tell them, if you can't be in, don't want to be in, want to go off, block it off. If it's open, I'll book it. If it's not open, then I don't question them what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it. And everything for us is a group decision. Because I'm not the only massage therapist in the room. You know, they're with me. And so when we make decisions, or I need to make decisions about what the website looks like, or if we're going to change the logo, or what color do you want this done, or would you know, I'm thinking about putting hand sanitizer on the front desk. Is everybody good with it? Not good with it? Like, what are your thoughts? And everybody puts in an opinion, and we work collectively.
I think that's how clinics
we're
like
we're
that.
family, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm not the only RMT writing the book in there. It's everybody. It's because it's the same business for us, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're all in it together. Right?
Yeah.
We're all in, as much as we all work in different places, we're all in business together. We are all in this COVID mess, debacle, like craziness together. Right now, all being off, and we'll all be in it together when we go back. So there's lots of supports out there for us. I think the main thing is we need to define which ones actually you fall into. And if you don't fall into one, figuring out and going to CR website and figuring out like who you can contact to make sure that doesn't fall through the crack, because it is likely you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, to wrap it up, I just wanted to ask kind of one more question. If you could give 2 or 3 pieces of advice to RMTs out there of how to get the longevity that you've had in this career, if there was a couple like key little things that you could pull out and suggest to somebody who maybe has only been here for 2 or 3 years thus far.
Give us your wisdom. I'm like 10 years in, but I still would love it.
Well, it's funny because the girls give me a hard time all the time. I'm not working as much as you do, Cathy, is what they say. So I do work a lot. I see a lot of clients and I do work a lot. But I find like I got to eat right and I got to go to bed and sleep. I'm a sleeper. I am not a night person. I'm a morning person. I have to work out. If I'm not eating right, I'm not sleeping right, I'm not working out, I don't feel good. And that doesn't translate well when I get into work. So that is big for me. Those are big things for me. Regular treatment, which we all know is also a big thing. And if you can't afford it and you don't have benefits, find someone that wants to exchange, because we're all out there just waiting. My favorite story is about one of the girls that I finally got to work with me, and I was looking for treatment because I had hurt myself, and she was my second therapist that I managed to get an appointment with, and brand new grad, hadn't been working, I don't even think 3 months. Some of the best hands that had ever been laid on me, which is the other thing for new grads and for people who are ever unsure. It's doesn't matter how long you've been practicing, you can still have great hands. But I just said to her, do you want to exchange? And she was like, yeah. And in my head, I was saying, please say every week, please say every week. And she just looked at me, she goes, do you want to go every week? And I'm like, done. And so awesome. We did that for years. We exchanged an hour every week. And I probably never felt better in that time than any other time. It was amazing.
Oh, a massage a week. That is the dream.
Yeah, Heather just said that today. We were talking and she goes, the first thing I'm doing when we can go back to work is getting a massage myself. And I'm like, I think every RMT is doing that. Like our schedule's going to be full of just massages going back, because I was saying that I trade every 2 weeks with an RMT, and then Heather and I do some trading in between there. And I'm like, I don't know how people don't do this. Like I've been doing it for 9 years, almost every other week, and I've never felt so bad in my whole life. And I've never worked not at all, so I don't know how that works together, right? Like
because we're not moving.
I know the couch is ruining my back. It's terrible.
Yep. Yeah, well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for joining us and sharing all your wisdom with us today. We truly, truly appreciate it. So,
thanks very much for having me. It was really great for me.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for hanging out with us today. If you know someone who would enjoy listening as much as you did, please be sure to send them a link. You can also share a screenshot of this episode on your Insta stories and tag the.mtp. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review or send us a voice memo over Anchor. Thank you for being a part of the MTP family. Be kind, be well.